The Jacobins, they had seized power in France and unleashed their reign of terror. Over 35,000 people would find their death beneath the guillotine. Jacobin leader Maximilien Robespierre then faced an uprising in the Vendée region, with already England, Spain and the Dutch Republic, as well as Austria and Prussia against you. The last thing you need is an uprising from within. And what do you do then? You crush it with all your force and with all your might. This is the story of the enemies of the French Revolution, the Royalists and the war in the Vendée, a war that was called the War of Giants by Napoleon. The storming of the Bastille on the 14th of July 1789 marked the beginning of the French Revolution. The newly formed National Assembly established the first French Constitution in 1791. The king could remain on his throne, but his powers were limited. Knowing his followers, the Royalists, would be waiting across the border, King Louis XVI tried to flee his country but was intercepted by the revolutionaries and brought back to Paris. Soon he was removed from power, and this is known as the Second French Revolution. The following month, the First French Republic was established. In January 1793, Citizen Capet, as the former French king was now called, stood trial and received the death penalty. On the 21st of January 1793, Louis XVI of France was beheaded under the guillotine. His wife, Marie Antoinette, would also be sentenced to death. Now, within the French Parliament, there were basically two different factions. The moderates, known as the Girondins, and also the radicals, the Jacobins. Now, the Girondins, they argued that there had been made enough changes, but for the Jacobins, it was not over. They wanted voting rights for all, higher wages, lower prices, and they were basically supported by, well, you can guess it, the poor people. These radicalized poor people were named the sans-culottes. In June 1793, 80,000 sans-culottes surrounded the Parliament building and arrested most of the Girondins. And now the radicals, the Jacobins, they were in charge. And the reign of Robespierre is known as the Reign of Terror. The revolution was threatened from outside. See, England, Spain, the Dutch Republic had joined Austria and Prussia in their crusade against the French Revolution. But also, the revolution was threatened from within, because there were reactionary movements, the Royalists, who wanted to undo the revolution. Now, Robespierre's policies were harsh. Those who fell out of line were sentenced to death. People from all layers of society ran the risk of being executed, and a total of 35,000 people were executed. Now, many people in the Vendée region were shocked to hear that their king was beheaded. The anti-Catholic policies of the National Convention did not sit well with many people either. The emblem of the Sacred Heart of Christ became the emblem of the Vendéans, who rose up against the French Revolution. In 1792, a peasant rebellion had already taken place when the convention asked for recruits to fight for the Republic. This rebellion was suppressed, although the animosity remained. The Vendéans saw how an outside force, the convention, took benefits of nationalizing church property. They saw this as an attack on their way of life. The anti-revolutionary riots grew more violent as hundreds of pro-revolutionaries in the region were killed by insurgents. In March 1793, the regime was in need of troops. A lottery system had to pick single men between the age of 18 and 40 in the Vendée area. In other French region, violent reactions occurred, yet these disturbances were quickly suppressed. Now, in Vendée, the situation grew out of control. This uprising caught the Republic by surprise, and they quickly had to assemble a big army to quell the rebellion. Where it came down to was that many army units were formed, varying from National Guards to regular infantry to volunteers to the Paris battalions. All these troops had to be clothed and fed, and this proved to be a great challenge for the Republic. Now let's take a look at the Vendéans. Two principal armies developed, with an additional third group that consisted of smaller armies that were located towards the coast. These were peasant armies. They basically fought close to home. When a threat loomed, they were summoned, and after the threat had been repelled, they dispersed. Their war was a war of defense. When called to arms, the peasants would gather in companies under parish captains at pre-arranged locations, often the parish church or town square. The companies would then merge to form divisions at larger muster points. Each peasant would take a few days' provisions, often carried in a canvas bag thrown over the shoulder. Normally, half of the parish quota would gather so that the rest could continue farming. Only in dire emergencies, such as during September and October, would all be summoned. By April 1793, the area north of the river Loire was restored by the Republicans. South of the river, the Republican forces were routed by the Vendeans. Early May, the Vendeans captured Bessouire and Thouars. In the latter place, they captured large amounts of enemy equipment and many Republican soldiers as well. Now, most of these soldiers were let go after they had sworn not to pick up arms against the Vendeans ever again. They were deliberately shaved bald so they would be recognized and killed if captured a second time. Later, the places of Fontenay-le-Comte and Saumur were taken and Nantes was besieged, but by ineffective cooperation between the rebel armies, the city was not taken. Other victories for the Vendeans did follow, however. Yet by October, the Republicans were reinforced and the Vendeans suffered losses from battle and disease. During the Battle of Savonay, at the end of that year, the Republicans achieved a decisive victory. The Republican reprisals were extreme to say the least. David Avrombel argued the war in the Vendée set a new European standard in atrocities. Early 1794, 12 detachments of Republican soldiers applied a scorched earth policy. These hell columns burned houses and woods, confiscated or destroyed stores of food, killed livestock, and engaged in large-scale rape, pillage, and slaughter. In some cases, they killed only suspected rebels. In others, such as La Floquelière, they liquidated men, women, and children indiscriminately, including patriots who had remained loyal to the Republic on the grounds that no one still living in the Vendée could truly be loyal. In the port city of Nantes, the Republican authorities devised appalling new methods of mass murder to eliminate the brigands more efficiently and to reduce stress on the killers. Most hideously, they lashed thousands of prisoners into barges and lighters, which they then towed out into the Loire estuary and sank. The total death toll of the Vendée Uprising comes down to 200 to 300,000 people. Thanks to my patrons you see on screen, and a special thanks to Henry Clarkson, Cool and Chasm, the President, Michael Nosak, and One Bad Cookie. If you want to support me, please go to the link in the description. And an even greater special thanks to Cool and Chasm. He donated $25 a month, and therefore he could choose his own topic, and he chose this topic. So Coolin, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts about him. Other thoughts are welcome as well. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe, and au revoir!